Hello, this is Pete Saronis, and welcome to the Dots and Bridges Thought Leadership Consortium. I am super fired up and excited to have a conversation today with my two colleagues, Mr. Debashish Bagchi. Did I pronounce that right, Deb?
Yes.
As I call you once in a while. Got it. Okay. And Paul Smith, if you don't know that guy, when he smiles, you'll recognize him. Pearly whites, he's the man. These two gentlemen and I are going to talk about a topic that's as hot as it gets inside the Beltway and beyond, if not around the world, and that is artificial intelligence, machine learning, ChatGPT, generative AI. It's all tied together. And then we're going to get into something really unique and specific as it relates to Debashish's company, Airwire Technologies, and this unique value proposition he has with an application, or as we call it, a personal concierge called GenAI. But before that, let me just brag a little bit about these two. Again, my name's Pete Saronis. I run Dots and Bridges. I was the CTO at the United States Department of Energy for 8 years, 25 years in government. Greatest run of my life. Miss it like you wouldn't believe, and spent a lot of time with our national labs. I've got R&D in my DNA, and I can't wait to go back. So that being said, I'm here to moderate, but to jump in a little bit, because this is something that just piques my curiosity. So it's exciting to have these two gentlemen, thought leaders as they are, with me. Debashish is president and CEO of Airwire Technologies. Check it out online. Google it while we're talking, folks. Brings 30 years of startup experience in wireless, telecom, semiconductor, software, gaming industries. Pretty broad swath, but if you can't tell, he's a geek, but he's a technical geek, and he's awfully conversant, you will find out. He also was chairman of the board of ShareGate, where he helped raise money, which he understands that whole West Coast thing that is very popular inside of the Beltway now, but he's got that entrepreneurial mind and spirit, and you're going to hear that today. Paul Smith, if you know him as the man from Red Hat, he could have easily been that logo, because he was the face, and some people still think he is that face. I'm a huge fan of this guy. He and I go back decades. I've stayed in touch with Paul. He's been a mentor for me throughout my career. He's 17 years senior VP and general manager of the public sector for North America at Red Hat. And since he's not gone off into the sunset, he is a sought after board advisor, a board member, but he's got 40 years of experience, and you could Google the guy's name and you'll see how passionate he is about this kind of topic, which, whether it was open source in one day or Oracle in another day, he is like me. He's very curious and he loves to learn. So that's what we hope to convey today. And before I allow these two awesome gentlemen to introduce themselves, because they tell the better story, I don't read bios, I am giving homework to anybody watching this. We're going to reference a lot of acronyms today. We assume you will look them up. We're not going to have a Q&A per se, but we're kind of hoping you read it and understand it. And today will be a day where you will have a light bulb turn on in your brain. We will reference the blueprint for an artificial intelligence Bill of Rights. Let me say that again. Blueprint for an Artificial Intelligence Bill of Rights, released in October of 2022. It's a great read. The National Cybersecurity Strategy, released this month in March of 2023. And if you really want to see some interesting factoids around some of this AI and the advancements that our country is looking after or looking towards, October 4th, the Biden-Harris administration announced a lot of the actions associated with the blueprint. So that's some homework. That's a lot just to kick this off. And again, context, we're going to dispel myth, and we're going to hopefully educate, inform, and enlighten in the process. With that, I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague and friend, Debashish Bagchi, and tell us a little bit about yourself, your passion, and what the journey's been like, buddy.
Sure. Hey, thanks, Pete, for the great introduction here. I'm delighted to be here and to talk about some of the greatest things that are happening in the market today. And it doesn't get any more exciting than this if you are an entrepreneur and if you are in the high-tech business. So with that, my background is I have a Bachelor of Science degree from India. Then I came to Syracuse University to pursue computer engineering. From there, I transferred to University of Nevada at Reno, and I started my first company straight out of the classroom at UNR. And this was my senior project that we decided to take it to market. We started with 4 original guys, built it to 107 people, raised $30 million from Silicon Valley VCs, left that company, started what eventually became Airwire, and we're going to talk about some of the great things that we are doing at Airwire in terms of bringing some of this artificial intelligence products and making it meaningful for the humankind so that they can make their lives a little bit easier by using it.
Yeah, great points. And I hear and understand, because obviously I know you, but again, for those who watch this impact on humanity is what I know is what drives you. And nobody's here on the Thought Leadership Consortium. Nobody's allowed to trash competition because nobody does it. It serves no purpose. It's the evolution of evolution, in this case, of artificial intelligence. So we're fired up to hear a bit more about GenAI, as is what we'll refer to it. Paul Smith, I see you enough to know what's going on, my friend, but seriously, I mean, Paul, speak to a little bit about your incredible journey, places you've been, but now being out and kind of, being able to take a breath for a minute, but just this world of technology and the impact it's having, and just your thoughts on this AI sector.
Well, thanks, Pete and Deb. Great to be with you as well. My journey started years ago with great technology companies like Oracle, and made my way to Netscape in their beginnings, and then off to Veritas. And then finally, for the last 17 years of my career as the GM of Red Hat's largest vertical, the public sector. And that's where I got a real introduction to not only open source and the benefits thereof, the safety of it, but also how we collaborate in terms of leadership principles as well. And since I've left that, I've gone on to what I call my grandfather stage, which is now I'm involved with a lot of technology companies, mostly startups, and helping guide them through all processes of operations and marketing and sales. And I've been involved with Deb and Airwire now since back in November, which was way before the hype on ChatGPT, as an example, which is now, when I say hype, it's front page, upper fold of the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post, what have you. And it's grown quite a bit, but this technology has been around for a while. And Deb and Airwire were one of the very first companies to actually take this and turn it into a concierge, which is, for those of you that know all about Siri and Google Assist and Alexa, is an assistant on steroids. And we'll get into the conversation on that. It was very interesting to me because it takes the technologies of ChatGPT from OpenAI, takes technologies from Watson, from IBM, and some proprietary code that Airwire has written to turn this into a concierge that is really language-based and contextual and conversational. So it's a paradigm shift from what we've seen today, and existential threat, if you will, to a lot of companies in the past that have really relied on, just say, search engines. So this, to me, going back to my Netscape days, is as game-changing as in 1994 when Netscape came out with a browser.
Well, Paul, you hit on so many themes that we wish we could give 2 hours to people, and it could be a lecture. And you hit on some of those. We're going to jump into ChatGPT because I think a lot of people, at least I didn't initially, was, what the hell does the P mean? I get chat, but GPT, and then it's like looking at a pharmaceutical drug commercial where you're like, they call it something cool, but then you're like, that's what it really is. Thank God they call it something cool. So we'll get into that. And I'm going to, spoiler alert, kick it back to Deb here, who take us through this journey. Let's make sure the audience, before we get to know what makes Jay and Airwire so unique, there's been an evolution. We mentioned AI and machine learning are thrown together. They're different, but they're the same, but they're different. They're complementary. Well, generative artificial intelligence, GenAI, is really, to me, consumer guy, not the smartest tack in the room, sort of the umbrella. Then you get into a flavor, ChatGPT, and then, it kind of distills down from there. But just for everybody, generative pre-training transformer. We're not calling it that. We're just going to call it ChatGPT. But as Paul pointed out, there's a lot you can learn by simply looking these terminologies in. What we like to convey at the consortium is you got to learn some of this in your own way. So with that, Deb, talk a little bit about the evolution of the AI market and how ChatGPT is just representative of what I like to call a toolbox.
Sure. So if you look at the market has been evolving from the standpoint that we needed certain things to happen in the market for AI to be really available and where people can use it in a very meaningful way. And in order for that to happen, so you had to have devices like, say, iPhone or your Android phones to come to life, because without those, where are you going to put these capabilities that people can use? It will be ubiquitous in the market and it'll be very easy to use. So those basically led to where we are today. And what actually happened in the process was, as these devices were getting smarter and intelligent, people's needs and expectations out of technology also was growing. And it was growing from a standpoint that we just didn't want to sit there and click on keyboards to type things or explain what we are looking for. We wanted these devices to have certain amount of intelligence, as if they could read our minds. And what happened in the process was, this led to the concept of generative AI. And what generative AI does is that it basically teaches it uses artificial intelligence to create text, to create art, to create conversation. So what we are doing with artificial intelligence is basically we are slowly beginning to teach these devices, these machines, the way humans behave, the way humans learn, the way humans talk. So in the process of doing that, where ChatGPT's brilliance came in here was, ChatGPT was one of those unique capabilities that they created the tools, because they couldn't have created all the applications that would have used artificial intelligence, because they would have narrowed the market down to the point where it wouldn't have made any sense. But the brilliance was that they created the toolbox whereby you would be able to in a very human way, put a question in front of ChatGPT, and ChatGPT, with immense data points, it would be able to go and look that up and come back to you with an answer which would feel like it's a human-like answer and a conversation. But go ahead.
No. You're in a flow, and now I'm like the student going, "Hey, teacher, I got a quick question." Remember Horseshack from Welcome Back, Kotter? If anybody knows, I'm dating myself. I'm aging. I'm 56 this year. Quick question on that, and then Paul, I want to have some of your comment and feedback, because that's what I like, is we're riffing off each other. There's no script here. Acronyms aside, buzzword bingo, as I call it, aside, the evolution of Gen AI. I heard you say that, if I look at ChatGPT as a toolbox, at some point companies, and Paul, this is where I'd like kind of the lead into you, when you're marketing to a government agency or selling into, it's about the matching a capability of a technology with a mission need, a requirement. No one size fits all. Is that what I heard, Deb, there? That if ChatGPT provides a lot of tools, there are specific tools in there that can serve a unique function, which could have a capability in your case that is different than what we're seeing ChatGPT today. A lot of people today, right, are going, "Hey, yeah, cut me off." By the way, say, "Pete, shut up for a minute, because I want to get," but I think of like this, students writing essays. People can design art by saying, "Design this for me." I know that's compelling, but there is a way to do it in a way that we can trust that the information we receive and the integrity, which we'll get into, which I know, Jay, your solution provides. We'll get into that. Did I catch some of that?
Yes. So the key points there is that if you look at it in very simple terms, ChatGPT provides the Lego blocks. Now, what you make out of it is your creativity, your company's capability, and the problem you're trying to solve.
Okay, I dig it. And we are all saying ChatGPT is an inflection point, to Paul's point about Netscape in the browser. So shout out to OpenAI for sure, and this invention. Paul, what are some of your comments on this and just a perspective?
I think to make it sound a little bit simple, let's just compare what we know today in terms of a search engine, which basically will go out based on a query and fetch information. So if I go out and say into a search engine, tell me how to make chicken noodle soup at home, it'll fetch a variety of information. Whereas what happens in the generative AI type of environment is, number one, it's very concise in its response, and it's very human in its response. It's going to tell me in a very matter-of-fact way, like my Aunt Catherine might tell me, is like, here are the exact steps to make your chicken noodle soup at home, without a plethora of other information that just is not contextually aware of what I'm doing or what who I am.
Well, it is that the, Deb, back to you, this, we can Google something, a search engine's a good example. And I loved your example. We talked about when we were prepping for this, Deb, around the transportation sector, what it can do for our daily commute.
Sure.
And I think maybe now's a good time to introduce that, think of it this way, as I like to always say, for example, people respond to, oh, that is what I do every day. I get in the car. So why don't we take what Paul said there and just bring it back, keeping it in that simple, like my mother-in-law or my mom would understand, here's how we're kind of doing and using, whether it's Alexa or Siri or Google Maps today. What's the future look like for us in that regard?
Sure. So one of the things that happened in this evolution process was you have these assistants that are very application specific today, meaning they can do one application and they can do it reasonably well. So for example, let's take Siri. So if you want anything out of your iPhone, yeah, Siri can help you with it. The problem with Siri is that it's a query-based system, and you ask it one question, the next question, it doesn't even remember what you asked previously. So now you have to reiterate. So when you are, as an individual, you wake up in the morning and you're getting ready to drop your kids off or go getting ready to go to work. I mean, we are going from one task to the other. So it's not just asking one question and forgetting that the response of that question and going back and asking a second question, which has impact from that first question. But Siri cannot help you there. But what Siri did was, Siri did show that when, let's say you are in your car and you said, Siri, call this person, made it very simple. Instead of opening your phone, going to contact, looking for the person's last name, and then trying to call them over mobile phone or their work number. Siri made it in one step with your voice. So it gave them the flavor that what this could be. But Siri never was able to complete the task. So what we created in the process of understanding this problem is J, a personal concierge, which is going to be conversational. So as if you had a helper sitting next to you, just like the way you would talk to that helper to provide you some of the information you need as you're getting ready for work or as you're getting into your car to drive to your destination. We created this personal concierge from the standpoint that it would make your day-to-day activities very simple to handle. You have one point that you need to talk to, meaning J, the personal concierge, so that you don't have to go from app to app and get into each one of their apps assistant. And at the same time, this is conversational and human-like, so you can actually have multiple different conversations at the same time, which will maintain the context, and it can go back and forth between these multiple different conversations. So Pete, if you want, I can give you a quick short example of what that means in real life. So for example, when you get up in the morning, you're getting ready to have your cup of coffee, and you looked at your mobile phone and you said, hey, Jay, can you tell me what do I have on my calendar today? So Jay said, well, you have a meeting with Pete at 9 a.m. this morning. And I also see that you have a 2 p.m. appointment in downtown Reno. And by the way, I looked at the weather at that time and it shows that there might be localized thunderstorms. So please remember to carry an umbrella. It's that convenience factor, knowing that J looked out for you and it came back and gave you that relevant piece of information so that you are not walking into the meeting all drenched and looking like a wet cat. So instead, you are prepared when you are going to your meeting. Similarly, as you're getting into your car, you tell Jay, hey, Jay, can you unlock my car door? Jay unlocks the car door, you start moving, and Jay goes, oh, by the way, I see that on the way today, there is a roadblock, there is construction going on. So I might have to reroute you through a different route, and it might take you 10 minutes. Do you want me to call your assistant and let him know that you're going to be a little bit late? So go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I'm picturing my commute, and again, what you think is good, it could be better. And Paul, you know, what you saw with the browser, and thank you for bringing the J into the conversation. Again, for the audience, GenAI, pronounced J, a personal concierge built on IBM Watson. I would like to get a little bit of more background for the geeks in the crowd, and people want to know, wait a minute, what's going on there? Because I think that that informs, you know, and really underscores a lot of the credibility of what you've built here. So hearing that example resonates with me. I like the idea of it remembering. I'd like to be able to control some of that, because I don't want to be in the car, you know, and having guests like, well, why do you do this? And all of a sudden people are asking me questions about where I commute and where I go. But more importantly, I think now for me, I'm getting a sense that our daily commute as we know it today with some mapping tool, which is convenient, oh boy, it could be a heck of a lot more intuitive and helpful, and remember a lot of the daily routine. So thank you for that. Paul, what are some of your comments in hearing this? Again, you being a guy that has been around the block many a time, new versions of software come out, your job's to get out there and help businesses, government agencies understand that this evolutionary of, you know, whether it's open source or some data repository or some relational database, it's in a constant state of improvement. What are your thoughts on J?
Well, first of all, this train is moving. J and generative AI, it's moving and it's not stopping. So we're going forward. So we're going to be looking at this in a very responsible way too. As a matter of fact, if we take a look at President Biden's blueprint for AI Bill of Rights, you know, we talk about a couple of main concepts in there in terms of equity, in terms of data integrity or provenance, and in terms of privacy, right? So the paradigm is going to change there too, and all these things are possible. But when I take a look at industries, especially within government, the government has, you know, verticals within verticals. So we can talk about energy, where you came from. We can talk about healthcare. So talk about all of the healthcare agencies, both public and private. And when we talk about contextual, now the possibility going forward is it understands me in terms of I've got nutritional goals, I'm on certain meds, I've got a certain lifestyle. There's things that I do in terms of preventative maintenance. There's drugs that I'm on right now for cholesterol, or you know, or Skyrizi, which is something that's that protects you from other skin maladies. And so this gives us an opportunity to have all that context in play when we go and ask the next question. Should I eat these foods, or should I take these medicines, or where's the you know, where can I take these classes, and so forth. And all of this context is actually kind of built in, so they're not separate queries like, should I eat more fiber? It will actually know that I have that type of lifestyle. And moving forward is just going to be extraordinarily game-changing for a lot of these other industries.
Paul, I love that you went where I was about to. So it's our mind melding, and you just tied for me, and I hope the audience, this why the infrastructure law, the bipartisan infrastructure law, released $1.2 trillion, followed up by the Inflation Reduction Act, followed by or in concert with the CHIPS and Science Act. Folks watching, what I'm seeing is you know, Deb, you and your company, you're taking an entrepreneurial spirit, you're applying it to something that's mainstream, that's in a constant state of moving forward for the greater good. And yet there is a lot of policy, there's a lot of regulation. Paul pointed out, some of the tenets of the blueprint, safe and effective systems, data privacy, algorithmic discrimination protections, alternative options. People may not be as fired up about, it's learning a lot about me, but I always say personally that I recognize there are threat actors out there. This is where that whole cybersecurity, thing comes into play. But if something is trustworthy and built with the right type of cyber protections, which of course I know Jay is, and working to always make it harder for the bad actors to compromise that. Paul, you hit on, this is something that can help fortify those very sectors, the 16. Public health you mentioned. Jay was something that was applied to the transportation sector, Deb, which was awesome. So folks, think of it like that, information that can help in light of where our crumbling infrastructure is in our country. Planes, trains, roads, automobiles, the food we eat, the air we breathe, the water, being able to detect something before it essentially gets into our body or puts us at risk on the road saves lives. So that was my light bulb moment prepping for this, Deb, and I applaud you and the great people at Airwire. And Paul, of course, you're a Nat Master storyteller. I think this is something that is resonating inside the Beltway. But thank you, Paul, for the critical infrastructure and blueprint for AI, and give the Beltway a little bit of credit and the folks on the Hill for saying, look, artificial intelligence is something we have to really dive into. So before we hit the where the puck's going, which is how I like to finish with some parting shots, I just want to give Deb the platform to you, and then back to Paul for his parting shot, and then Debashish will finish it out with you. Can you kind of just talk a little bit about this IBM Watson and Jay sort of DNA sharing? Because I think that's awfully compelling for our audience.
Sure. So what we did was in the process of creating Jay, we wanted to create something that was going to help people get through their day-to-day lives a lot more easier than what we have today. So the point was that it was never to take over the activities of a human, but it was basically created to help human be more intelligent, more efficient, more effective. So this is truly something that we want to make humankind the main character in this, and not the bot that is making it all happen. So with that in perspective, when we chose to use Watson, and Watson has a very good natural language processing capability, so we chose Watson to basically teach, Jay was going to teach Watson to learn more about the individual behavior. And as it learns more about the individual behavior, it starts weaving those behavioral capabilities into the conversation with the individual, so that the responses that comes from the queries of the user is more relevant, and it's not a generic information where Pete's behavior is very different than Deb's behavior. So we wanted to acknowledge the fact that we are talking to Deb, and we also want to acknowledge the fact that we are talking to Pete, so that the bot, Jay, the personal concierge, knows Pete as an individual, knows Deb as a different individual. Where go ahead, Pete.
No, keep going. Finish that thought, buddy.
So where ChatGPT blew the door open for all of this was it made that generic conversation very, very useful from the standpoint that now it's not a query-based system. You can talk to it as a human, and it responds to you almost like a human. Now, the thing is, you obviously need the guardrails in order to make sure that ChatGPT is providing you what you need, because ChatGPT has a lot of other capabilities that your product or Jay, the personal concierge, may not need. So IBM Watson comes in there and basically is acting as the traffic cop to make sure that we get the relevant information out of ChatGPT and provide ChatGPT's capabilities as something that the user can very easily use. So we enable ChatGPT for generic conversation, because there are times, whether you're sitting on your couch or whether you're driving, you just want to have a conversation with somebody. And given the environment, and especially the world that we live in, it is so individualized environment that maybe having a nice conversation with Jay is not a bad idea.
Love it. And I hope that resonated. And personally, and I know Paul, you probably would agree, anything that says was built on IBM Watson or some other well-known historical landmark of a company, I say there's credibility, relevance, excuse me, and there's some authenticity in there that makes you feel pretty good about what Jay can offer. And obviously, I hope folks, as you get out there and convey a lot of its value proposition, they understand just how much effort. This isn't something you just went and bought off of the shelf or repackaged. It was built with folks, Debashish's brain and his colleagues, and it just seems like that next evolution is where we are. Puck's here today, but you have a good sense of where it's going. Okay, so Paul, I'm going to come back to you. I just want to remind people, that this is not something that is a pitch of any sort. We are basing this conversation on what's happening in the world today. If you do happen to read Strategic Objective 4, if you will, or Pillar 4 in the National Cyber Security Strategy released just a few days ago, where investing in a resilient future is critical. I quote, as we build a new generation of digital infrastructure, from generation telecommunications and IoT, Internet of Things, to distributed energy resources, and prepare for revolutionary changes in our technology landscape brought on by artificial intelligence and quantum computing, the need to address this is now. And I applaud any entrepreneur who's out there trying to take that momentum and build us a better future for generations beyond me, hopefully for my kids. But I like that artificial intelligence, going back to square one, is sort of the mothership of what now has led to generative AI, ChatGPT, Jay, and obviously some other instantiations. Okay, with that, Paul, parting shot. Include what you want, 30 to 45 seconds. What excites you, and where do you see this going?
Well, let's just kind of roll back to the very beginning of the conversation and understand that the great stuff that OpenAI started back in 2015 and actually went through many iterations of ChatGPT, I think the latest version is -3 right now, is primarily a toolbox. And the Wall Street Journal had a great article last week on the mania that's going on right now with startups to develop applications based on that toolbox. And that was their primary raison d'etre. The reason for being is to create that. Airwire is one of the first startups to actually create a real application, marrying Watson, marrying ChatGPT, and marrying natural language processing. So rather than use one of these, like millions of people have used to actually interface with ChatGPT right now, a real application that's driven around personal needs and using a voice interface to get there. So, if you take a look at this marketplace, the reason, even in today's paper, I have it right here, this is today's Wall Street Journal, a great article on Google and Microsoft and all the investments that large companies are making into this. We know Microsoft just dropped another $10 billion investment into ChatGPT. So this is real, it's moving, and we've got startups out there like Airwire that are creating real purposeful applications that are going to enhance our lives. The industry, according to the papers, are saying this is over $100 billion marketplace into the future. So I'm just excited to be on the front end of this, and like everyone else, just voraciously reading both mainstream media and technical papers to figure out where the puck is going. So it's to be determined, but a lot of great areas.
Paul, you're a trailblazer, you're a pioneer. And again, you and I sit there and talk tech, and folks, it's not because we just met in a tech world. Paul and I call us geeks that, wish we were as smart as a guy like Deb. We just are always fueling our curiosity. And thank you for bringing up some of those articles. You sent me one where it referenced the generative AI market, not ChatGPT, folks. The generative AI market is expected to reach $109.37 billion by 2030. So as a former Fed and working now in industry, when people say, Pete, I need some help getting into this place, I'm like, look, you should worry about talking to the right people, having the right information, and knowing where the deal flow is. This is a case where there's going to be lots of money in this market, but you better be able to map your capability to a mission need, which is one of my mantras. And that's what you, Deb, have emphasized throughout. Deb, close us out. Parting shot. What do you want to leave with the audience?
So I just want to let the people know that this personal concierge, it's coming in the market. It's going to be extremely fun to use, and at the same time, it would be one of those things that once you start using it, you wouldn't even know that you need it. But if you don't have it, you're definitely going to miss it.
Well, immersive is something that I just took from that. So thank you for being awfully succinct. That's probably the quickest parting shot with the most information I gathered in such a short span of time. And that's no knock on my man, Paulie, because he just is a storyteller and I love to listen to him. All right, fellas, it was so great to have this conversation that matters. I appreciate you coming on the consortium. I hope people will see this and watch it again and again and use it as that maybe fundamental for dummies, not to say either of you are or myself, but to kind of get people excited about this. So thank you both, and keep that passion burning.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Always fun and energizing to be with you.
You're the man, Paulie. Good to see you, Deb, and then we'll talk again soon.
You got it. Thank you.